Hello, everyone, and welcome. Certainly is a special day for the 107th District, for myself and Representative Belfanti, or Representative Goodman. We are so honored to be here for this ceremony honoring the life of Bob Belfanti. Just wanted to say welcome to everyone and a special welcome to the Belfanti family. We're going to have the posting of the colors now.
Detail, 10 hut, present arms.
And we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Robert Belfanti III.
Please let us rise to honor those who have fought and fallen in all of our wars. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Detail, order, arms.
The story of Robert E. Belfanti Jr.'s heroism really begins with Boy Scouting. Here Bob learned the true values of being a patriot. The Scout Law was the most impactful over his lifetime. That law, which is that a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, shaped how Bob lived his life. He followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a second-generation Eagle Scout. Less than 1% of Boy Scouts ever attain the highest rank in scouting of Eagle Scout. My brother and I were also fortunate to become third-generation Eagle Scouts through his leadership. And because of him, my two sons, Eric and Patrick, are well on their way to becoming fourth-generation Eagle Scouts. If Eric Jr. and Patrick become fourth-generation Eagle Scout, they would become in the company of only a handful of families in this country to ever have earned this accomplishment as a fourth generation. Bob was a scouter most of his life. He established the first Cub Scout program in our area, where countless other boys learned the laws of scouting to help guide them in life. He earned virtually every leader award in scouting for his efforts. Dad, you're a Scout's hero. Bob's next act of heroism came while serving his country in the United States Marine Corps from 1967 to 1971. Bob got his draft papers upon graduating high school for the Army. He was accepted to Bloomsburg University, but this had to wait. Instead of enlisting in the Army, Bob chose to enlist in the Marine Corps. While in the Marines, Bob excelled in all facets. Much of his success stemmed from him being an avid hunter and an Eagle Scout. Bob was an air crew chief on the CH-46 Troop C Night transport helicopter. On January 22, 1969, during Operation Dewey Canyon in the Krong Valley, while flying his fourth mission, there he observed fellow wounded Marines who were exposed to small arms fire. Bob immediately exited his chopper to lend aid to the Marine by himself. Tragically, by the time that Bob got to his fellow Marine, he had already perished. Even while Bob was under heavy enemy fire, he was able to retrieve his fallen comrade's body. For this gallantry, Bob was awarded the Bronze Star with a V for bravery in action. A few months later, on April 27, 1969, while at the Da Nang Air Base, an out-of-control grass fire ignited the entire ammunition and fuel supply in the camp. This ignited over 20,000 drums of fuel and 35,000 tons of munitions. Bob, in the presence of great danger and personal risk, rescued countless wounded comrades to safety. Because of this gallantry, Bob was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal of Heroism, which is the highest award someone in the Navy or Marine Corps can earn for a non-combat event. Less than 1 month later, on May 10th, 1969, while at Tibet, Bob's CH-46 helicopter was shot down under heavy enemy fire. He was thrown out of the chopper. Instinctively, Bob ran to his comrades who were wounded to lend first aid while under heavy enemy fire. Armed with only a sidearm, he was able to hold off the Viet Cong and successfully rescue several of his fellow Marines until heavy air support came. For his gallantry, Bob was awarded a Bronze Star Medal with a V for bravery in action during Operation Apache Snow. Dad, you're a United States of America war hero. Upon being honorably discharged as a sergeant from the United States Marine Corps, Bob followed in his father's footsteps and became a journeyman electrician in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Bob was still a card-carrying member until the time of his death. Dismayed by the current political climate, Bob became very active in the Democratic Party. Bob was a co-founder of the Northumberland County Young Democrats. He was the Young Democrats County President for 9 years. He also became the state vice president of the Young Dems in 1974, and then the state president in 1978. Bob was then awarded the National Young Democratic of the Year Award by President Jimmy Carter. In 1980, Bob decided to run for the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Bob won as an underdog as the 107th Legislative District, which was heavily Republican at the time. As you all know, Bob was successfully reelected 14 more terms. While in the House, Bob would be a champion of many causes. Protecting and advancing the working middle class was an especially important calling for Bob. True ideals that he lived by. Bob served on many House committees during his 30 years tenure as a representative. However, his true passion was always labor relations. There he served as minority and majority chairman for 18 years. He was especially a champion for unions. He introduced countless legislation over the years to protect the rights and privileges of blue-collar workers. One major accomplishment came for the nursing profession when he spearheaded legislation that would end mandatory overtime for the nurses after they've already worked a 12-hour shift. This practice was not fair nor safe to the patients who were at most risk. This was also passed and became law when the Republicans controlled the Senate. This was bipartisanship at its best. Bob was also instrumental in forming the House Democratic Northeast delegation, which became the second largest delegation of the House of Representatives. That made it possible for non-Philadelphia, non-Pittsburgh Democratic legislators for key House leadership posts for the first time in more than 100 years. Dad, you're a legislative hero. Bob never forgot about his dreadful days as a United States Marine, so veterans' rights and protections were always on his mind. Naturally, he was honored as Patriot of the Year and Veteran of the Year for his unwavering efforts for our country's veterans. Bob was finally awarded 100% veterans disability 4 months before he passed away, after 45 years serving in the Marine Corps. 15 of those last years suffering with great pain caused by Agent Orange. There is still much work that needs to be done, and others will have to continue to carry that torch. Dad, you're a veteran's hero. While the PA lottery was in its infancy, Bob was instrumental in creating many of its additional programs as sales and revenues increased. When created, the new law's priority was property tax and rent rebate program. As more revenues were realized, than were necessary to fund the property tax and rent rebate programs, Belfanti helped create a list of other senior citizen benefits that could be funded by the lottery, such as senior action centers, the shared ride, rural transportation buses, and the very important PaceNet program, the adult daycare program, and children's health insurance programs. Dad, you're a senior citizen's hero. Locally, Bob spearheaded the formation of a nursing school and branch campuses of Luzerne County Community College in Coltmont and Shamokin, two areas that have never had meaningful access to higher education, especially for the people who work full-time. Further, Bob was instrumental in loan forgiveness programs for jobs that were in high demand, such as nursing. Bob single-handedly saved the Shamokin Area Community Hospital, even when most told him that it would be political suicide, as he took on his own party and governor by holding up the budget. The Democratic leadership at the time took away many of his resources, staff, walking around money, and more in order to pressure him into conceding for his budgetary vote. But Bob was relentless and unwavering, and Bob, you were victorious. Dad, you're a 107th Legislative District hero. Bob has accomplished so much more in his lifetime, much of which had a meaningful impact upon the citizens of Pennsylvania. Dad, you're certainly a Pennsylvania's hero. Dad, you've guided us, gave us indispensable wisdom and insight into many areas. Most of all, you gave us our undeniable attention and love. Thank you for everything. Dad, you're a hero, and we love you more than words could ever show. And today, as we celebrate the birthday of your hero, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, let us not forget JFK's words of wisdom. A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on. Now today, your idea of self-sacrifice, leadership, and love for our country will be forever memorialized on this day by this highway dedication. Now we ask the Almighty Lord for our prayers. May God bless this highway named after you. May God bless all the persons that have helped make this idea a reality, including the Honorable Kurt Mosser, the Honorable Neil Goodman, the Honorable Governor Wolf, the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, and the Pennsylvania Senate. And may God bless these United States of America.
Thank you, Eric. I apologize, I forgot to have my jacket on earlier, but I think Bob wouldn't have minded. Bob was a man's man, and I don't think he would have minded a bit. He's probably saying, what the heck are you putting it on for now? When after Bob's death, looking back on the service that he gave to this region, I thought it was important that in some way we memorialize that dedication to this region, and thought about different ways that we could do it. And Cease came to me and said, would you name a highway after Bob? And I said, absolutely. I think it was very fitting for his many years of service to this region, to the coal region. Cease talked about what would mean the most to the family, and that was the Route 901 expansion project. And it made perfect sense, because without Bob and Neil and Senator Ed Helfrich championing that effort, it would have never, ever came to pass. So it was perfect. So Cease, thank you for that idea. I then drew up a co-sponsorship memo and took it to the chairman of the Transportation Committee. He said, and he served with Bob for a long, long time, John Taylor from the Philadelphia area. And he said, "While I have no doubt that Bob deserves this recognition, we will not name highways for politicians. We are naming highways anymore strictly for heroes." I said, "Not a problem. Let me redraft this citation, or this co-sponsorship memo and let you know who Bob Belfanti really is. He's a war hero." Once we did redraft it and tell him about his service in Vietnam, the chairman had no problems advancing this legislation. So it was pretty cool that while he thought he was hurting me, it was just a minor road bump, because I could bring up Bob Belfanti's incredible war record in Vietnam. So it's been my honor to try to somewhat fill the shoes of Bob Belfanti and to be part of this ceremony, renaming a portion of the highway that really Bob was so instrumental in. With that, I'd like to introduce, this highway is going to go into two different PennDOT districts, two different counties, because that PennDOT project stretched through Northumberland and Schuylkill counties. And the representative who served with Representative Belfanti for so many years, Neil Goodman.
Thank you, Kurt. It truly is an honor to be here today and to be with the family, Cease, Scott, and Robert. I mean, everybody knows how much family really meant to Bob. I can tell you dozens of stories about my good friend Bob Belfanti. Maybe not in mixed company, but I could tell you some really good stories about Bob Belfanti. Bob was my mentor. I was hired in the House of Representatives back in 1980, and 3 years after that, I was made executive director for the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. And there was one guy on that committee that you had to have on your side or nothing happened, and that was Bob Belfanti, combat Marine, somebody who knew the legislature better than anyone. I've learned very quickly that you had to have Bob on your side. And I'll be honest to tell you that when I first met Bob, he was kind of intimidating. You know, he kind of liked to snarl at people, and he had a way of kind of like talking you down if you didn't know what you were talking about. He made sure that you were prepared when you came to a committee meeting. And then my former boss retired in 2002, and I ran for the seat in 2003. And the day after swearing in, I was called into Bill DeWeese's office, who was the leader at the time. And Bill DeWeese, Marine, Bob Belfanti, Marine, me, a Marine. He looked at me and he said, and Keith McCall was there. And he said, "Neil, these are going to be your mentors. Keith McCall is to your east, Bob is to your west. And I strongly suggest that you follow along and listen to them." So when the meeting was over, McCall comes running over to me, and he's a happy-go-lucky Irishman, he's like, "Oh, congratulations, Neil." He's all smiles, and he leaves. Bob's just standing there looking at me. And he says, "What's the first rule of a foxhole, Neil?" I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "When you were in boot camp, what'd they tell you? First rule of a foxhole." I said, "Keep your head down." He said, "Yeah, you keep your head down. First guy sticks his head up gets shot. You keep your head down, your mouth shut, and don't do anything without running it by me first." He sat right next to me on the House floor and guided me through some really tough votes. I mean, I remember Bob saying, "This might work in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Neil, but it doesn't work in the coal region." He was a special friend. I don't know anybody that didn't like Bob. And when we did our House citation, we broke from protocol because it's only the members whose legislative district it is that are allowed to do a House citation like that. And they don't give out House citations to members or former members. But we were able to get it through. And I would bet to this day that there are more signatures on that House citation than any other House citation in the history of the Commonwealth. Because I took it to the other side of the aisle and walked up and down the aisle and had Republicans sign on to it, and not a single one hesitated for a moment. That's a gone day. I mean, the bipartisanship and the fellowship that was shared by both sides of the aisle, and the affection that was held for Bob. So when Kirk came to me and said, we really should do something for Bob for all his years of service, I don't think I've ever been on 901 without thinking of Bob Belfanti, because I know how he fought with then Governor Casey to get the funding to get that done. And it was not an easy fight. I thought it was a long shot, to be honest with you. But he did it. I mean, he really did it. And that development of that highway has led to economic development in your area. It just goes to show you what one person can do when they put their mind down to it. And that was Bob. So I am honored to be here and to play a small part in having Route 901 and the Strong Connector named after my good friend and mentor, Bob Belfanti. Thank you.
We're going to break from the program here for 1 minute because I did ask Mayor Simino to offer a few remarks also. Mayor Bing Simino.
Good morning. Although I didn't come here to give a speech, I can speak a few words about Bob. I met Bob back in 1982 on a personal level. Serving in the Air Force, I came out and was having a little bit of problems. And even though I didn't get to talk to Bob the first day, Bob called me up personally. And what I learned about Bob was the fact that when you see the old license plate that says you have a friend in Pennsylvania, whether you're a veteran or just a common person on the street that needs a little bit of help, Bob was always there. He welcomed me with big arms. He said, thanks for serving the country, and I returned the same thing to him. But when you talk about being a hero is not a word you can give for Bob. Bob's much bigger than that. I looked at his medals, and when I walked into their house and showed me some of his medals, it's unbelievable what Bob did. And he always put everybody else first before himself. Even though he was a family man, everybody else was first but Bob. And that's one thing you got to say about Bob. And he always told me to call him Bob, too. I talked to him. Anytime I talked to him about a problem in Mount Carmel, he always gave me advice. And I learned that when Bob spoke, you listened to him because he knew what he was doing. He'd do research for stuff, and he just helped you along the way. So, Cease, Bob, and Eric, you can be very proud of your father. Like I said, he's much bigger than a hero, and words can't speak much more than that for him. Honor him with this highway. A lot of people think about Bob, and when they see that sign, they're going to know it. So someone like Bob, Cease, and Bob and Eric, be very proud of your father. Thank you.
And now, the person who we love more than anything, his wife, deceased Belfanti.
This is going to be very hard for me. The memories in my heart will last forever for what he did. I'm sorry. Is that okay now? I don't have as big mouths as these guys do. That'd be something Bob would say. Bob was elected in 1980. He had many ideas and dreams. As a freshman legislator, it was always an uphill battle, but he never gave up on what he wanted to do for his district and constituents. He pursued them relentlessly. One of the many was the 901 project. I have the 901 original plaque and ribbon-cutting ceremony right here with the schematics, how much it was going to cost. He knew what it meant personally and economically, and how it would benefit not only his constituents, but opening up economic development to his district. With the help of the Honorable Senator Edward Helfrich and the Honorable Bob Casey, they worked together to make this highway become a reality. On November 1st, 1990, that dream became a reality with their official ribbon-cutting ceremony opening up our area for bigger things to come. Again, that plaque is here. There's a quote, "No man's deed goes undone," and believe me, that was never truer for Bob. The aforementioned gentlemen and their families, we can be very proud of them. Honey, you did a good job, and I love you for your persistence for all of us. You left a legacy that cannot be touched, and in my heart, I feel you know it. Thank you, Representative Kurt Mosser and Harold Hurst, for putting so much effort into this wonderful dedication, and also Representative Neil Goodman of Schuylkill County. The Mount Carmel Veterans Color Guard, the news media, and WKMC Mount Carmel High School TV station, Mayor Semino from Mount Carmel, and Bob's former staff members who really became part of our family. I would like them to rise, please, because you did truly always become a part of our family. Bob, you will never be forgotten, because every time we drive 901, we will feel him beside us and beside you. I invite you to view his veterans' pictures and plaques. There are pictures from Harrisburg a few weeks ago calling the Wall of Healing, honoring Vietnam vets, and honoring present, former, and deceased Vietnam vets from the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. He was honored, and I am very, very proud of it, as well as my family. My sincere appreciation to everyone in attendance who could share this with me and my family. And I thank you very much for loving him as much as you did, and as much as I do. And my family, I would like to introduce them, please. My oldest son, Bob Belfanti III. His daughter, Victoria Rose. His daughter, Natalia. My son, Eric. That was a beautiful invocation. Bobby, your Pledge of Allegiance was also, thank you. Eric's son, Eric. Patrick. And not last, but my Ella Bella. I have two grandchildren that could not be here. One is my grandson, Jacob, who's 21. The other is my granddaughter, Gianna. We always said we had the Magnificent Seven, and believe me, that Magnificent Seven can never be touched by anyone for all the love that Bob and I and all the good times we shared with our family. We're a true family. We believe in family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cease. That was beautiful. Now we're going to have remarks from Kim Beerley, the Regional Manager for United States Senator Bob Casey.
Good morning. Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, and I had the pleasure of meeting Representative Belfanti a number of times back in 2006 and 2007, and I'm very glad I had that opportunity. I'm representing Senator Bob Casey today, who unfortunately is elsewhere in the state. I have a letter and a certificate to present to Mrs. Belfanti. Dear Mrs. Belfanti, I want to offer you my warmest congratulations on the naming of a portion of State Route 901 as the Honorable Robert E. Belfanti Jr. Memorial Highway. This occasion speaks to the high regard in which Representative Bob Belfanti was held by his peers in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, and as a wonderful acknowledgement of his hard work, commitment, and leadership on behalf of his constituents in Pennsylvania's 107th Legislative District. Please accept my best wishes and congratulations on this well-deserved honor. Sincerely, Bob Casey, Jr.
Just wanted to recognize a few people. His name has been said a number of times, but the great Senator Ed Helfrich. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. I know the one thing that I always look at with Bob's service was how he could work with Republicans like Senator Helfrich and Merle Phillips. They work to better the region, and I think we certainly do try to honor that tradition with certainly Neil Goodman and myself to help the coal region. So Senator Helfrich, thank you so much for all your efforts throughout your long and storied career. Cease did mention the former staffers. Thank you so much for coming out. Mayor Semino, thank you for coming out. But a special thanks is to the Belfanti family. At this time, we are going to unveil the sign. So if I could have the family come up. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I think that's the biggest memorial highway
It might be set in record. That's a big very well deserved. Cease had asked that we do a ribbon cutting to honor the ribbon cutting that was originally done on this highway. We're going to do that at this time with the family also.
You guys do the cutting?
Well, as you can see, these are new scissors. The scissors from 1990 are very, very rusty.
Excuse me.
Thank you all for coming. Special thanks to Representative Goodman. We have been talking to PennDOT. They have assured us that for sure within 30 days working between the two districts, the signs will be posted on the highway, and we look forward to that day also. We just couldn't do it at the highway site because of the dangers with the traffic there. So thank you all for coming out. We will have now retire the colors.
Detail, 10 hut. Right shoulder, arm. Forward, march.